Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is the Tim May Show, and I'm hoping you're having a great July 4th and July 4th week. I think everybody has every other day off this week, maybe even starting last week. Shoot those fireworks if you've got them. Who knows when they're going to be outlawed again. But welcome back to the Tim May Show. Pete Nakos of On3.com. Pete, welcome back, my man.
You bet. Thanks so much for having me, Tim.
Yeah, and I'm a little antsy with you. It's a co-pilot because you just keep hitting on a lot of subjects, man, as you cover your beat. Explain to people what your beat is again.
Yeah, so I cover college sports business, but a lot of it is focused on NIL and how that kind of factors into the transfer portal and recruiting. And then also recently I just got thrown on the EA Sports beat, it seems like, in trying to figure out that college football video game. And it's still on schedule for 2024.
Yeah, every time we call it college sports game, you call it college sports business. And then every time we call it college sports business, you call it a college sports game. That's a little takeoff from an old time movie. I think it was North Dallas 40, but I digress. I just wanted to get you on. I mean, as I explain to people sometimes, well, why have you got to go on there talking about college sports business? We want to know who's the starting right tackle. Well, we're not going to know that for Ohio State. We're not going to know that probably the middle of August, Zen Mikowski, Tegra Shabola, Josh Simmons, the transfer from San Diego State. Who knows, right? But what we do know right now is the quagmire, which you thought by now would have gotten a little firmer, the swamp, the melting, the melting tundra up in Alaska, you would have thought would have gotten a little more firmer. But, lo and behold, there's a heat wave going across all of North America. So that's keeping that at bay. And then number two, the NIL landscape has got its own melting terra firma, its own melting tundra, right? And just when you think Congress was going to jump in there and do something about it, and everybody was all excited. You remember what I did, right? I did this.
You okay, Tim? You good?
Just holding my breath till Congress does something. You're not surprised, are you, that Congress hadn't done anything, has not provided, quote, the guardrails, end quote, for the NIL and the NCAA to pull itself out of this quagmire, this melting tundra? You're not surprised, are you?
Unlike you, I never held my breath on this one. But no, I don't think that we're going to see any significant movement anytime soon. I was just in D.C. this past month when the SEC invaded Capitol Hill, and it just seems like right now it's just a lot of talk and not a lot of action. And it seems like some mixed messaging to it. That's a representative from Florida who still wants to have like another legislative hearing. And then you turn around and hear Charlie Baker saying he wants something on the floor by like August or something done by the end of the fall. I don't know, Tim. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of motivation. And as I've been telling people, and I'm sure you would agree, I don't think a lot of elected officials want to waste their goodwill that they've built up over the years on NIL and college athletics. It's not exactly the most pressing issue in the world.
Yeah, it's not. And it's funny because you did a story, I think it was based on a little interview. Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, highly regarded SEC Southeastern Conference commissioner, not Security and Exchange Commissioner, but the SEC commissioner, did with Joel Klatt. And he, it's really funny because we've talked about this before. The NCAA did a great job at the analogy I always use of kicking the can down the road. And now all of a sudden, college officials, including Sankey, just reading his comments, they're almost throwing the blame at the federal government for not coming up with guardrails for them, when in fact they had 50 years, 20 years for sure, to come up with their own guardrails in NCAA, and they couldn't get to it because they kept thinking, I'm sure part of them kept thinking, well, this is going to go away eventually. Instead, it just festered and festered and festered until you had state laws, competing state laws, right? And there is no, just real quick before we jump to some other things, what is something that you think the NCAA, based on your depth of reporting on this, what is something the NCAA could do tomorrow to get a better handle on things besides limiting the length, for example, the transfer portal again, which you're talking about? But big deal, the transfer portal is still going to be there. But there's really nothing you can do when state laws say say in Texas it's legal to do this, and in Ohio it's legal to do this, and in Pennsylvania it's legal to do this, but not this. What can you do as an organization to get a handle on it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's much you can do. If you could go 6 months before all these new state NIL laws kind of came together, kind of like the second wave that we're seeing after the push to allow NIL.
Yeah.
I think the NCAA really took way too much time, and they showed why nobody trusts them right now, and they never came down with any enforcement on an NIL violation, right?
Yeah.
Everything that happened in Jaden Rashada at Florida is very publicly documented. I know for a fact that they've sat down with Jaden Rashada, and they've yet to do anything. And I think it really creates a environment where most schools who are trying to really compete for a national title in one of the revenue sports that we always think about, just not is they are not they don't. Sorry.
No, that's all right, man.
We're gonna.
Hey, there's you should stumble for words in this because it's hard to explain. I mean, why some people jumped on it, some people didn't. Ego's driving this bus. Pride is driving this bus, right? I mean, we want to make it conducive for whoever our is, whatever state you're in, to be highly competitive, and have no rules to a certain extent regarding how things can be set up. You have rules, but no necessarily limits, right?
Yeah, the NCAA screwed up. They had an opportunity the first 18 months or so to come down on NIL. They didn't. And this is the position that they have themselves in now.
I think a great example that you brought up in one of your stories was John Ruiz, the John Ruiz example at Miami when he jumped in there, the guy who owns a couple of big time private businesses. As you point out in one of your stories, they didn't have a great year or a great quarter at the end of the quarter last year, but that's another story for another day. That's business. We're talking about business. We're talking about the game now. And he helped a couple of the Cavender. I'm trying to remember. He helped somebody.
So he signed about 4 of the men's basketball players, 4 of the 5 starters for the Miami men's basketball team that went to the Final Four.
Yeah.
And then he also had a recruiting dinner with the Cavender twins, the NIL stars from Fresno State, and that came out in February, I believe, as a recruiting inducement. And it was an NIL related violation, but they didn't rule it as an NIL violation. And we can save this for another day, but it spawned off this entire debate if John Ruiz is a booster or not, because he only acted as a NIL entity per se, and he wasn't exactly giving funds for athletic facilities and things like that.
Yeah. And what is the other thing he did though? He's threatened legal action about it.
He threatened legal action. He told me in like March or April, I believe, that he was gonna go to court on this within a week. He hasn't. It's July 3rd. Yeah. So I guess we'll just keep waiting.
John Reese and the federal. Are you equating John Reese to the federal government? Is that what you're doing? To Congress? Is that what you're doing? No, you're not doing.
No. Yeah. You did that.
But here's the segue. It's a good segue into this. I mean, you had a story here recently ranking what the on threes most ambitious collectives, and there were 20 teams. You ranked your top 20, and standing out about that list was what wasn't on that list. There wasn't a collective from the Ohio State University associated or related, and there wasn't one from Alabama. And you and I have talked before. One of the things I think that is not, I don't know if hurts the right word, with Ohio State. At one point, Ohio State had 4 collectives going on. I think it's down to 3 now. And who knows what the future holds for even maybe one of them. But there's 3 now, and that's sort of a shotgun approach, isn't it? Do you think that has in any ways hindered Ohio State of having a more focused approach to the collectives, or at least people around Ohio State? Obviously, it's not Ohio State doing it, but the collectives around it. And, and like you and I talk, I'll ask you both questions at once here. And the other thing is, do you think fans and alums are still confused on, do I want to give to the university, or do I want to give to a collective? And now with the IRS coming out with a statement last week or 2 weeks ago where that you chronicled about a lot of these collectives, you're probably not going to be able to count them as charitable donations. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know why you would, but there has to be a lot of tie-ins. There's going to be a lot of receipts being saved, for IRS audits and stuff. But go ahead. I mean, that's like 6 questions at once. But
let's just go back. You mentioned, right, the 4 to 3 collectives in the Ohio State market. Yes, the fact is that it creates a lot of confusion for the common fan or donor, and where they want to put that cash. Tim,
but but here's the thing,
No. No. Here, I got a good answer for you. I apologize. Something happened. If you go back and you look, right, it went from 4 to 3, and that's a major reason why Ohio State didn't make my top 20 list. It's because a lot of your common fans and your common donors don't know where to put that money right now. Yeah. It's really confusing to the common fan to know where they should give their money. And then to answer your question about the IRS, right? Like, so 2 of the 3 NIL collectives are nonprofits, and each have kind of come out with their own statements about how they want to operate. It's really interesting right now. Alabama obviously had a collective that shut down, and then they relaunched one. And it's just a little Alabama. The NIL funds are never going to be able to compete at Alabama with what a Texas or Texas A&M can.
Yeah, dude, I grew up in both countries, both states. Alabama, my first 11 years, Texas next 11. And you're exactly right. They're never going to be able to compete with Texas A&M and Texas alums, et cetera. Anybody wants to get involved there, it's a total different. I'll say this, total different country. They'd like to be a different country, at some points. But I wanted to get into that. We already talked about Johnny Ruiz and the University of Miami. You've got them ranked, the University of Miami collective, number 5 in your list, because they have been ambitious in this thing. I mean, they want to be a big player, and it's been sort of a focused approach, right? I mean, am I right about that?
So I think the thing you have to look at with John Ruiz is he spent like $10 billion on the first year of NIL, which is a substantial amount of money.
Get your foot in the door, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that much. And you obviously saw their recruiting rankings kind of go like this because of, not saying he induced recruits, but they definitely were able to see what their opportunities would be at the University of Miami because of John Ruiz. The last 3 months or so, it's kind of an interesting to follow Life Wallet and John, because they have not been as active, obviously, especially since that violation came down from the NCAA when it came to the Cavendish twins. But there's this other collective, Kane Connection, that has done a lot, and the 2 of them together have obviously done quite a bit in the first 2 years at NIL. And while there's a lot of questions right now about the future of John's businesses and things of that sort, you can't discount what he's done. Big picture in the first 2 years.
But I think what he did was he opened everybody's eyes. I mean, in my opinion, they were the first ones to boldly kind of go, look, and I can't remember the basketball player's name. We don't need to name him, but the kid that everybody thought was going to transfer to Ohio State and ended up going to Miami. There's that hazy, really gray area.
There's a lot of hazy
and NIL. Yeah, exactly. And they jumped right through there. Yeah, they came out of that haze. You know what I mean? A surprise. All right. You got number 13 on that rankings. Michigan with the Valiant Champion Circle.
You just had to bring it up.
Well, I just brought it up just because Ohio State's not on the list. That's why you bring it up, right?
Yeah.
You scratch where it itches, right?
Yeah.
But do you think, in your opinion, is Michigan doing it the right way and doing things that gives them a heads up? I think they're a highest rated team from the Big Ten on this list. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
If we're gonna not include the future Big Ten teams, USC is in the top 10. But
exactly.
Michigan is. Yeah, current. I think what you have to look at in Michigan is they have this Valiant Management that basically operates as a sports marketing firm, and that's been extremely successful for them in the first 18 months. And then they formally launched this Champion Circle collective that has the full backing of the athletic department. It kind of gets back to what we were talking about at Ohio State. There is a little bit of confusion right now in Michigan as well, but Jim Harbaugh has come out and really selected that one collective as the go-to. And I mean, Harbaugh is currently like traveling across the country talking about NIL, and that's the collective that's going with him to every school.
Yeah, the guy who had to be dragged, kicking and screaming into this. I mean, hey, dude, if those are the new rules, you play by them, right? I mean, that's the deal, right?
Yep.
I think what Ryan Day has endorsed, or at least in all the paraphernalia, the 1870 thing with Ohio State, has that helped them in your opinion?
I mean, yeah, I don't want to like rank the three, but I would say the 1870 is probably like 2 months old at this point, and they've really come on strong, and it's very clear that they have the full backing of the administration and the Ohio State football program. And this kind of goes down a different path. No, I will say, but it's been really interesting to see, right? There's the Ohio State collective market.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of focus on football and basketball, while you have Cohesion, which has really gone to great lengths to sign some women's athletes, and same as 1870. And not to get too nerdy on everyone, but there's a lot of conversation about the Title IX and NIL, and obviously the deals are outsourced and things like that. So it doesn't really Title IX is so closely related to like school athletics and not outside, but it's been interesting to watch the male athletes are obviously getting more opportunities.
And plus, if representatives of a school kind of like come out and endorse one or the other, then Title IX there will be implications toward Title IX. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Because for all kinds of reasons. Because
that's
the interesting
the
one
kind of
here,
thing that nobody knows yet either. That's the one title nobody knows, like what's going to happen or anything like that.
Well, you know why? Because you got to wait till all of the fallout hits the ground and see where it piles up. That's the deal.
Exactly.
We're still less than 2 years into this mess. Nebraska, the surprising one also, Nebraska at number 19 on your list. And dude, I've said this all along. Nebraska, when Bob Devaney was there, and they built that program up big time, made it a national power, and from then on, the wherewithal is there in Nebraska. The pride, the money, the interest to jump them forward. That's what's been missing for Nebraska, is like that focused approach again. But now that you have NIL collective involved, I'm not surprised by what I've seen come from Nebraska. Are you?
No, I mean, obviously you mentioned Bob Devaney. That makes me think a little harder too. But I mean, Lincoln and Omaha are just like major business centers, and then you look at it on paper, right? Like, I don't know their sellout record, but it's obviously pretty eye opening. And Nebraska football is like the one and only show in that state. And when you think about it through that angle, then yes, obviously the common fan does want to give money, especially to a program that maybe hasn't had the most success in the last 15 years. And if NIL is the avenue to do that, then that's obviously they have the funding in place. And one thing I'll say is, I mentioned this in my story, but obviously Dylan Raiola, the one-time Ohio State commit, is now a Georgia commit. And just talking with sources and stuff, it's become really clear that if Dylan Raiola picked the school over NIL, he would be at Nebraska right now.
Exactly. And, there's a give a damn factor there for football, that I know there is in almost everybody you've got on the list, but the give a damn factor is major. Just like you've got South Carolina on your list. People, they've rarely been really good, but they've always drawn really great support and stuff. So, it's no surprise for me to see them on your list and stuff. And of course, the one I wanted to bring up with you, and we talked about this before we started, SMU, number 20, SMU, back in the rankings, so to speak. I mean, I was, part and parcel. I remember the Pony Express, et cetera, in the 70s, and the only team to ever go on the get the death penalty from the NCAA in major college football. They're back on the list because they can muster the troops, man, if they have to. That program, that alumni base, and are you surprised to see the Boulevard Collective is what they call it? Go ahead.
No, I'm not surprised. And they came in on really strong in August, announcing that like 3.5 million would be given just for football and basketball. I believe like 36,000 an athlete, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of money to give to every single member of a football and basketball team.
Yeah.
So I mean that set the bar really high, and then similar to Nebraska, right? I mean, SMU's history, everybody knows it. And I think that, I mean, the Dallas Fort Worth area, obviously, like A&M and Texas are like I guess, I don't know, the two
Kings.
best teams in Texas.
Kings and
but
Prince, I think is what
the
they
team,
call it.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. But SMU has all the resources they need, and they obviously have the alumni base. And you look at the Dallas Fort Worth area. I mean, there's a lot of money there, Tim. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. There's a reason why SMU used to be really good, and there's a reason why they could be good again.
Yeah. There's a lot of football players in that area too. You know what I mean?
There are a lot of football players.
Yeah, I remember telling Tom Herman when we went to took the job at the University of Houston. That's a no-brainer to me because within 100 miles, there's unbelievable college football players who aren't even being discovered by some of the places and stuff. Now,
exactly.
I'm interested because, you know, USC was on this list. I think at number 11, wasn't it, or something like that?
USC cracked the top. I thought they cracked the top 10. Yeah. Here, I can pull it up real quick. It's they were right there at number 7.
Yeah. Okay, number 7. That's right. 7 come 11. Throwing dice. But UCLA's not on that list. So I'm you know, we're looking at SMU, the Boulevard Collective. How come there isn't UCLA, the Rodeo Drive Collective? Do you see that coming? I mean, I was just out there for a week and a half almost for the US Open and stuff, and ate at Westwood Village one night right across from that movie theater where where they filmed the Bruin Theater for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I mean, what an area, man. And but do you see UCLA maybe jumping on there with the Rodeo Drive Collective? What do you think?
Yeah, I could see them jumping on the Rodeo Drive.
I love that.
The one thing I wanted to mention too, and not saying anything you don't know, but like a lot of people have reached out to me like, why isn't this going this? Well, it's the top 20 NIL collectives. It is not the top 20 schools that have been funneling money to kids since the 1980s. And that seems to have really ticked some people off.
Well, of course it does, but they don't like reality.
No, but I mean, no, I'm not going to come out with a top 20 list that is straight off recruiting inducements. And I'll just say that list would look a little different.
Yeah. And then on top of that, like we're talking about here, collectives, what do they mean in terms of recruiting? Well, they mean a lot, you know, in some respects, but you still got Ohio State and Alabama ranked up there, you know, highly in the 2024 recruiting rankings. Georgia has one on your list, has, you know, its collectives on your list, but I mean, this is about.
They're not the richest.
No, exactly.
Make that clear. Yeah.
These are richest. A lot of these are former contenders, let's put it that way, who want to be on the list again of contenders of getting up there and having a big time college football program again. And the rules right now, well, really, what are the rules? There almost are no rules allow you to get more involved now. And so it's no surprise, right, that some of these have stepped up.
Yeah, it's not a surprise. And I mean, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like Georgia's at the very top. Ohio State's been a contender for like the last 20 years. That really has been in question. Alabama under Saban. Yeah. Like you look at the top 10, it's a lot of schools who want to be contenders. And NIL is the pathway to get there for some, especially the ones with massive endowment funds, big alumni bases, and then just also like, I think we forget when we talk NIL sometimes, like the schools that will be most successful in this new era, it's about like where they're located, right? Like Austin, Texas is like bustling. Knoxville, I mean, like in the world of college football, like Knoxville is actually a pretty big city.
Yeah, let's interrupt. And you've got the Spire.
I got Tennessee
number one. Go ahead now.
Yeah, so Tennessee's number one, and they've done a really interesting job and smart job of. It's run by 2 former sports marketing professionals. They have no problem going out and soliciting deals for Nico Imaleva, for example. But they also have a subscription service. They have a pretty vast e-commerce business, and they also have a nonprofit entity for tax deductible donations, which we'll see how it all goes. But that is still all put together. And then Oregon is also in that top 5, and the amount of money Phil Knight has just poured into NIL the last 24 months now, it's just been unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. Want to be a big player. Got to be a big player. You don't go to the poker game with $5 in your pocket, right?
You do not.
No, you do not. Well, I do, but hardly ever play poker. I'm sorry, you can't buy into this game, Mr. May. Actually, I don't play poker. But I digress. But here, last thing. Is it interesting to you? We're almost 2 years into this, that the NIL possibilities have played some role. I don't think they have changed the landscape like I thought they would. I mean, even with the link with the transfer portal. Now there are exceptions. There's USC and the way it suddenly had a big time college football program with both Lincoln Riley and his top quarterback Caleb Williams showed up there. Obviously NIL had a lot to do with that, and he wins the Heisman Trophy, and now they're suddenly, without a doubt, a big player in the college football rankings, etc.
Right.
But to date, give me just a feel here before we finish. Has it had the impact you thought it would from an immediate standpoint?
I think we're still like another college football season away from really seeing it, right? You look at like the 22 and 23 rankings, like everybody, there was obviously the Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban fiasco, and Saban accused Fisher buying the entire 2022 class. Well, fast forward most of that class has now left College Station. We don't need to go into the details of why. There's a lot of rumors.
That was just two boys having a dust up, man. Nothing to see here. I think it's what Sankey said, right?
Nothing to see. But no, I think that we're like another college football season off. And I think obviously people want to build their teams through recruiting classes. I think the reality is that we're always going to see that NIL is probably going to be best equipped in the transfer portal, right? Not saying that every big transfer is because of NIL, but I think that NIL is going to continue to play a very big presence in college football's version of free agency. And you will get some of the movers and shakers, right? Like Sam Hartman's at Notre Dame, Tyler Buckner went to Alabama, Bo Nix stayed at Oregon. That doesn't happen without NIL being a thing.
Right.
Bear Alexander hopping from Georgia to USC. So
yeah, you're right. See, I think it's played a role in a few significant transfers, but not like I thought it would. Like I told you one time when we were on here together, that what if CJ Stroud and Bryce Young in the spring of 2022 had said, "Oh, I'm in the portal. What you got?" You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, they probably would have been looking for a package that would have paid them what they are going to make as rookies, and people laugh at it when I bring it up. But they probably would have been at least looking for like 10 million.
But don't you think that's coming eventually? Don't you think there's going to be a year where that happens if there aren't guardrails?
Yeah. What if Caleb Williams doesn't win a national title this year? He could come back. I don't know if he'll transfer. That's another discussion. But Drake May would probably be the best example if Drake May feels like he needs another year. Yeah. And he really wants to try to contend for a national title, then watch out.
Yeah. Well, you just brought up one too, while Sam Hartman. Moving to Notre Dame, Buckner, their starting quarterback for a lot of last year, moving to Alabama after his offensive coordinator Tommy Reese moved to Alabama. You don't do that without Nick Saban endorsing the fact that you'll have a chance of playing here. You know what I mean? There are all kinds of things that can factor into this. So anyway, boy, Pete Nakos, man, on a holiday week, I appreciate you joining the Tim May podcast again, man. I always enjoy your insight. And, On Three, I think, has really jumped into this. I think some people were like blinking their eyes like, what are you doing? But this is here to stay. Not only is this here to stay, but in many forms and fashions, it's going to be bigger and more significant, right? Just the whole business landscape with the athletes involved now of college football.
Well, Shannon Terry's done a great job of investing in NIL and college sports business, and really lucky to work for him. He's been awesome. And obviously, we're going to launch the On Three NIL athlete network is launched, but Grant Farraking has done a fantastic job, and we're going to build that out. And then, this weekend we added Andy Staples. He's going to be our national college football host, along with JD Piquel. And we're not even 2 years old yet, Tim. And I know you and I have been here from the beginning, but it's been fun to watch. And I said it on Twitter the other day, but we're really only getting started here.
Yeah. But I tell you what, I appreciate, like, you just named some big names there. I appreciate the work of a guy like you. You're kind of a youngish fella, but you've got a head for this thing. I'm talking about of dealing with what's significant, you know what I mean? As opposed to a lot of the bomb blast out there. You've got a feel for what's significant that's going on in this realm, and it's only going to get more significant in one form or fashion, And
Totally.
the thing I really like is the way you're keeping an eye on the legislative end of things, because that eventually, if it ever happens, there's a federal law, Congress gets its act together, and that's going to be huge. And the NCAA clearly is still sitting here hoping something comes along in that realm. But, Pete, 2, 3, 4 years from now, we may be talking about a total different governing body for the powers that be. I'm not going to say the Power Five, because I'm not sure there is a Power Five anymore. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's a Power 2, and maybe 1. But yeah. So I think we're headed towards revenue sharing. I think the college football playoff is going to oversee college football, and I think we'll have a commissioner in the next 3 years in revenue sharing. But what do I know?
Yeah, but dude, you just laid the groundwork, the seeds. No, you planted saplings there of some significance.
Saplings.
For the Tim May Show with Pete Nakos as co-pilot.
I can't wait.
Yeah, me neither. Hey, man, go have a nice holiday meal, and I appreciate you joining me, Pete.
Appreciate you, Tim. Have a good 4th.
And until next week, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tim May for the Tim May Show. We will see you then.